two novels, for example. In the case of Stoppard, it's directly taking this dramatic scene and sort of running with it and teasing out its theatrical dimension, I would say. But then it becomes more interesting in these late poetic responses, right? So, and there the question is what makes us even recognize it. So yes, I think style is certainly part of it, because by the late 20th century, there's clearly something stylish about Wittgenstein, right? That there he has these recognizable ways of phrasing things, both in the Tractatus and in the philosophical investigations, that we can recognize and pick up on. And so it's certainly style in the sense of a distinct way of using language. So sometimes I think it is a matter of accumulation of keywords, even central keywords, but also of phrasing them. And sometimes it's his own famous metaphors, like the ladder metaphor and so on and so forth. So it's certainly a testament to the extent to which, certainly in the 80s and 90s, Wittgenstein circulates through culture. And in some cases you can clearly see that these poets, they came of age when they studied Wittgenstein in college. David Foster Wallace, for example, wrote a senior thesis on language philosophy in Wittgenstein. So Wittgenstein just becomes very widespread as a philosopher of language. And these poets pick up on various aspects of them. Sometimes it seems more argumentative and really an engagement with the philosophy of Wittgenstein. But at other times, I agree, it's more a response to what I've called Wittgenstein the writer. And that certainly includes style, how Wittgenstein handles language in style in that sense. Yeah. So it's hard to come up with one description for all of them, but I think that certainly this later moments, there is a reliance on style, including these being poets. This is what draws them to it. That's the recognition that here's someone who doesn't just think about language, but practices language in a distinct and recognizable and reproducible manner. Reproduction of profiles is Rosemary Waldrop's title. Yeah. So this would be a short, we don't have much time, so I'll give that as a short answer. Thank you.
First, a note. I was really very happy you stressed the Wittgenstein concept of Sprachspiel, and the translation in English and in Portuguese and in French, who always erases one of the most important sense of Spiel.
Yeah. And
this is the first time I hear, and I'm very glad because I think all the same.
That's great.
Perhaps the translation should be double.
Yeah, it has to
language
be.
Came and language play.
I agree.
Yes.
I think wordplay is the other way to say language came.
Wordplay.
Oh, wordplay. That would be the more extreme version.
But this is an interpretation already, because it's a Sprache. I think it's very good to stress this double sense.
Yeah.
It is very rich in German. Even simple German people can understand this. The other thing is, I was really impressed with this short presentation of the Hungarian filmmaker.
It's unbelievably good.
Absolutely astonishing and amazing. And I think it has to do with the relationship between philosophy and other things. Arts, movies, literature, and also has to do with this difference that Heirs stresses. The second you have mentioned, this Wittgenstein against the written word. And several times, not many times, but several times in letters and in in fragments, autobiographical fragments, for instance. And also in the preface of 45 to the Philosophical Investigations, he also stresses this. He would not like to have a school, Wittgensteinian school. And I think this desire of him has to do with this not hesitation, it is deeper. He writes already. He writes, it's true. Yeah, it's true. He writes and writes a lot. But the things he writes are always in a state of fragmentary expression, and are always in a state of being reviewed and so forth. And then perhaps I should ask you, the best way of being an heir of Wittgenstein is it's not giving a new commentary about him, but to write a play or doing a film.
I couldn't agree more, and I think these were comments, wonderful comments, thank you. Yes, so I agree, language game and language play, one really needs both. It's interesting, of course, one can blame Wittgenstein, and Wittgenstein, I think, in a profound way, thought in German, though he lectured mostly in English, and he himself used the word language game. But I think he wasn't bothered by it because he continued to hear in his mind the much more expansive meaning of play. So I totally agree. Really, one needs both. And so the film, it's interesting. Yes. So the film, you know, this footage records these scenes. There's the spoken word, but of course there's also the writing. So the film really confronts these two modes. It doesn't seem to me to kind of celebrate, and that would be too easy, to just celebrate the pure spoken word, right? That's what happens to the Wittgenstein character in Murdoch's novel, but really it's a complicated relationship and a necessary relationship, and it's one of the great things about this film. I can't recommend it enough, that it really forces us to recognize that. By also giving us the written word across the screen, not just the spoken word. And this is, as you said, is precisely Wittgenstein's struggle. So thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
3 questions. Excuse me. But
sorry. No, I just wanted to follow up on that because I was actually really struck by this image at the end. And it actually threw me back to your opening comment about the 20th century drama of language philosophy, and I thought these very poignant words with respect to the drama that you're coming to, or in other words, the drama of this work too, which is the notion of the no longer believing that language is the path to knowledge. And I just wonder, what struck me with those images at the end was, on the one hand, this phrase, everything we see could also be seen otherwise, everything we could describe could also be described otherwise. And that combined with this notion of the aphoristic language in this way that even the Wittgensteinian sort of the aphorism, that there's always some sort of a gesture towards language and a juxtaposition of the spoken word with the written word with these gorgeous scenes, black and white scenes of people in the background in a realm that seems so far outside or beyond language. And I just wonder what are the stakes? What's at stake of sort of seeking to have the world be described by language?
Yeah. You know, that's really a wonderful way of putting it. And of course, you know, there is, so what I have in mind when I describe a kind of no longer believing a certain extreme form of language philosophy, it's obviously something like Worf or something like, you know, this radical linguistic constructivism, let's call it. But of course, you know, Wittgenstein, as Wittgensteinians in the room or whatever would be the first to point out, of course, Wittgenstein has this very powerful notion of Lebensform, of forms of life. And that's certainly something I also think of in these scenes from the movie, that these are forms of life, you see, preserved, historical forms of life, remote forms of life. So, I don't have an answer, but I really like this formulation. What is at stake in wanting language to explain everything? I don't know, but I think that's a wonderful way of phrasing it and maybe a nice way of ending the sentence. Thank you very much.